Good morning, everyone. I've got a couple of subjects I want to talk to you about today. And these are just talking videos. These are just us visiting. If y'all could all be here and sit out in my yard and enjoy the wind and squirrels are real noisy. I never knew that, but they're real noisy little chatterboxes. And then, of course, I've got birds everywhere. Mockingbirds are all above me, and robins. There's one that just flew out in the yard. Anyway, now let's get on to the matter of the business. I had one of my subscribers shared with me that the people that come and cut his yard, he had one of my incidences where they cut his plants down. That is one of the biggest problems, I'm going to say, of having a love for wild plants that are seen as weeds by other people. And then the reason I have someone to cut my yard, it's very small and I could really do it myself, is that when I first got here was when I had the bacterial pneumonia and I could not mow my yard myself. And the gentleman that he actually mows 2 or 3 other neighbors' yards on this block, he offered to do it for me. It's just $20 whenever he does it. And I've told him I don't want my grass mowed down to the dirt. I want my clover showing. When you go down my street, everyone else's yards are just mowed flat and green. And here you pull up into my yard and there's all these little clover heads everywhere. And he's a wonderful guy. He's real super sweet. And when I've had serious health issues and couldn't work, he didn't charge me and he still mowed my grass. We're very good friends. I appreciate him. He's also learned a couple of things through the years about the plants, and he appreciates my love of the plants. And whenever he hears of someone being sick, he'll come by and he'll ask me what he needs to tell them to do. And on 2 different occasions, he has come to me for me to give people the plant and the instructions for brown recluse bites. And because I've known him that long, he's been around as long as it's my second brown recluse bite. But now to the issue we've got with our love of wild things and the medicine it provides and the healing and the health that it provides. If you have someone else who mows your yard, this is going to be a constant fight with them. I am going to suggest that you do what I have done. Move all your wild plants into a safety zone. Now, one of the reasons I love growingyourgreens.com with John Kohler, he showcases yards that use medicinal plants and edible plants in a landscaping fashion so that they meet city code requirements of beauty and upkeep and that kind of thing. And his yard, he's had to fight to have his yard the way it is at his house, and he's actually shown us some pictures panned out of the 2 neighbors' yards on either side of him. Now he's in I think it's in Arizona. He's either in Las Vegas or in Arizona. The yard's just as bare, just flat green grass, and then you get to his yard and there is this abundance. It is like Eden. It is like a Garden of Eden that he has. So those are going to be constant fights that you have with people that have this love of a manicured yard. Now that comes from, as I've commented before, from the European gardens, the English gardens that became a fashion in England and migrated to America. Now, one of the reasons for this is, and we're going to get into a little sociology and psychology, and I do have a love of many different fields, and those are ones that I have a love of is human behavior. But to be able to afford to manicure a yard to the level that it is shows a status. It is a way to show other people that you have an excess of money so that you can have these neatly manicured yards. So that is why it is so important to people. I didn't learn about the fact that when you live in the city, everybody's got to mow the yard at the same time. Now, here's where we're going to segue into the funny story. I married a man who had grown up in the city his whole entire life. Now, he visited his family that lived in the country. They were from Farmington, Tennessee. That's over in Marshall County. And they were real country. These real country folks. One of the reasons why I got into the family so quick, I believe, is because Granny Marie, once she found out that I loved wild plants and herbs, we would go on drives together, and y'all, we would stop and we would nip cuttings out of people's yards, and we would dig up wild plants out in rural areas, and we would have a great time. She liked to drink a little wild turkey, and she was one of the most wonderful women I've had the fortune of having in my life and in my family. And I would call her actually a traditional medicine woman. She used traditional medicines. She was, by the time you get to her, she would have been considered half Cherokee, a quarter black, and a quarter white. And that's where my daughter gets her beautiful long curly hair. Was Granny Marie had the finest curly auburn hair you've ever seen, and then mix it with my red hair, and my daughter has this beautiful head full of hair. So but she was a traditional medicine woman. She made her own fermented beverages, and her and Mr. Vanoy, her husband, he would grill up a possum, y'all, and he would fry a raccoon. They didn't play around. These was country folks. So I fit in real well. But Rod was a city boy, and he'd always grown up right in the city in Shelbyville. And so he loved me, and the reason he asked me to marry him was 2 weeks into dating. He said, would you ever take your children to a creek to go swimming, or to a swimming pool? And I said, well, to a creek, of course. I'm not taking my kids to a swimming pool. Well, he asked me right then, and we were actually married for a total of 7 years. But one of our arguments while we were married, about year 4 we were married, he started working at a golf course as a groundskeeper. And with that, he learned a great many things about mowing and keeping things real tidy and nice. Y'all, he has a ruler. And you have this when you're a groundskeeper at a golf course, because it's very important for golf courses to be sanctioned. But he has a ruler that he pulls out of his pocket that he measures how tall the grass is. I didn't know about such things as that. But there was, he had changed a tire and had left it on the side of the yard, and there was some chamomile growing up, and he was out weed eating. I went, and don't touch that, that's chamomile, and I'm going to use that later. He said, Tanya, it's a weed. And I went, it is not a weed, it is medicine. And we had a big old argument. It wasn't like a bad argument, but we fussed coming and going about that. Well, he ended up, I went, well, fine, cut it then. And so he cut it. And now, through these years, these 20 years or so since, his employment has always been in landscaping based jobs. He's even had his own landscaping and irrigation company at one time, and he's worked at several golf courses, and I think that's where he's working right now. But this is where karma just is so lovely. Our daughter is a little country girl who loves herbs, and so he can't tell her what to do. So when he goes to mow her yard, she's like, "Daddy, don't cut that, don't cut that, don't cut that." All right. But he has also reaped the reward of this now. He has. When our daughter was 6 months old, he was diagnosed with systemic lupus. And it is in their family very heavily, and their family is actually part of a study group. But with the lupus comes, especially the systemic erythematosa, there are internal issues with inflamed organs. There are vascular issues. There are rheumatoid issues. It is a very painful disease. And of course, Rod was also a football player, so he got knocked around a good bit. So he's always been a heavy marijuana smoker. And I have always counted that to be and why he is actually still alive. We've lost many people in his family to this disease. And men with lupus typically have it very hard and don't live very long. So I have seen the benefit of marijuana. Now, I'm highly allergic to marijuana, so I can't be around it. I break out in hives. But for him, I've seen it restore his health, alleviate his pain. When he's vomiting and nauseous, it calms that. It has benefited him greatly. Well, when I became interested in this wild lettuce plant, and Olivia was actually enrolled in her herbal school at that time, getting her degree, she started learning about the plant. And then, of course, where she lives on Sand Mountain, y'all, she's got thousands of plants in her front yard, if Rod hadn't cut them all down by now. He did have to mow, I understand that. But she's got them in the fence rows and alongside the house. And it's just everywhere. Now, she has the Verosa. I am positive of it. And so that's the ones I did a video on wild lettuce, how it winters. That plant is at her house. And so she started making him a tincture to see if this would help with his lupus pain. Him using that has actually reduced his marijuana consumption because he only uses the wild lettuce for his pain that is related to the lupus. Now, I have happened to have read enough that I have explained to him it is not just helping his joint pain, it is also helping his vascular system, it is helping his kidneys, his organ tissue. That is what this plant does. But now that I've told y'all that little personal story I want to talk about, that's why I always want to speak to y'all about how do you successfully grow this plant. You're going to have people that do not understand the value of it at all. They're going to come along and think it's a weed and cut it down. They're going to question your sanity. People look at me like I'm crazy all the time until they try some of the plant and they get relief. And then they become like, well, where can I get more? And I'm like, well, if you turn right on that road down there and go down that little road and look over to the left in that field, there's a whole mess of it. Well, they don't see it. They have blind eyes when they see these because to them that whole thing is weeds right there. For me, I can pick out henbit, creeping Charlie, violets, white clovers, red clovers, pink clovers. There is a creeping plant. I do not know what it is yet. I have the Plantago major and the Plantago minor. I have the wild lettuce. I have wild mustard. From standing here, I see my mullein. I can pick out every little wild plant that's in there, and if you give me about 2 hours, I can sit down and I can tell you the nutritional value of these plants and what it heals and why you need to start pulling the leaves right now and drying them. And then and the reason why I suggest that I say that so many times is pulling the leaves and drying them is because that is an easy way of preservation, very simply. Now tinctures are good as well, but to dry the leaves, they store well. You can get a bulk supply. You can come out here and nip everything off, stick it in a bag, label it. Once it's dried, put it in a jar. Again, those half-gallon mason jars at Walmart are a big help for me with this. And you can keep this for the moments you need it. Medicinally, you can integrate it into your diet as well. Now, I will be studying the little yellow blooming plant that was in one of my videos. It's all over my yard, and I'm going to do a little video on that shortly. I'm still researching the medical benefits of it, but I wanted to encourage y'all, move your plants where they can be safe. Put your keep out sign on it, or keep off. Make sure that they are where someone else doesn't inadvertently come along and cut them. Now, I have actually seen in my country drives and stuff, people who do recognize their wild plants that do spring up in the middle of their nicely mowed yard. I pass a house, well, it's last year, they had probably 10 huge mullein plants right in the middle of their nicely manicured yard. I hope that wind's not making that weird funny noise. I'm going to kind of cup this right here and hope that that helps. But it wasn't in a bed. But I saw where the husband, when he mowed around those plants because they either for their beauty or medicinally, they knew that those plants should not be cut down. Now, before he mowed, I really thought about, could I sprint over there, grab leaves, and leave before anybody caught me? Yes, that went through my head. It goes through my head a million times a day driving down the road. I'm like, does somebody recognize the value, or are they going to weed eat that? Because if they're going to weed eat that, I'm going to go cut it down for them. So keep your wild medicinal separate if you have a situation like that. Y'all have seen Kenny has absolutely left my little plants alone. And he'll probably be by today sometime to get his money for mowing last week. And I'm going to bring him out here and I'm going to show him these things. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. Of course, this is a long video, but there's a lot of information in it. But the moral of the story is, if you have people in your life or that would cut down your plants, you need to keep your plants safe, because these plants are going to save you. God bless you all, and until next time, remember to eat all those wild things out there. Goodbye.